Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another Talk It Through with EHN podcast. For the next several minutes, we're going to be talking about suicide prevention. September is Suicide Prevention Month, but obviously the information that our expert, Bridgette Leyva, is going to be sharing with us is relevant all year long.
Yes.
So, Bridgette, thank you for sitting down with us. We know that you're very busy. You're the director of our Emergence Health Network crisis intervention teams.
Yes, ma'am.
So we appreciate any insight that you can give into this topic. So we want to start off with what are some of the most common warning signs of someone who may be thinking about suicide?
So a lot of what we see for the common warning signs is oftentimes like individuals who are starting to isolate themselves, no longer hanging around their family or friends. Maybe they're saying their goodbyes. Giving away their valuable objects as well. And oftentimes, sometimes there are changes in behaviors, such as eating and sleeping, the decrease. Sleeping less, or eating less, things like that. So those are some things that we see here at Crisis, just out in the community, or when they are suicidal.
Okay, so that coupled with some risk factors.
Yes.
I'm assuming that we really need to be aware of. So what are some of those risk factors?
So risk factors are maybe events that can occur in an individual's life. It can be previous history of mental health challenges or even previous suicide attempts. So something like if an individual has a major life change, like losing a job or a loss of a loved one, that's something where symptoms can increase to the point where it's becoming a mental health crisis and escalating. And so, oftentimes we have protective factors in place for individuals, or we safety plan to be able to surround that individual with some support.
Okay, and when you talk about a safety plan, what does that look like? What does it mean?
So a safety plan is a plan that the client will have themselves in times where they are in crisis or they're experiencing maybe some triggers or more escalated behaviors to the point where it's becoming a crisis. So a safety plan can look like identifying some triggers, right? Identifying some coping skills that they can utilize, and additionally some people that they can call, whether it's social supports, it's professional supports, or even just a friend or a family member.
Okay, so obviously this plan is further down the road where we've already identified that this person is at risk. We've already gotten them the help. We've had that conversation with them. We're already at that stage where now we're really going to keep an eye on you, and we do have a plan in place.
Yes.
So let's back up a little bit
to
what if you recognize some of those risk factors and some of those behaviors that you were talking about as a loved one, as a coworker, as a friend? What do we do? Because that's a big responsibility when you're actually thinking, I really think that Bridgette might be thinking of hurting themselves, right?
Right.
What do you do? How do you prepare? And what can you do to help?
Yeah, so sometimes it can be scary, right? Or you might not know how to approach that individual. A lot of the times we say, a non-judgmental approach, right? Where you have some empathy, but really it's just offering that support, whether it's, sitting with the person and listening to them vent, or allowing them to tell you, what it is that they're feeling, validating what they're experiencing, letting them know that they're not alone. And additionally, reaching out for some resources for that person. Maybe at the time they might not want them, right? But again, you want to be able to at least offer them something.
Okay, so how does that initial conversation, what does it look like?
So again, it can look different, right? Depending on who it is that you're addressing. But honesty is the best policy, right? So something as simple as, hey, I've noticed, some changes, or maybe you're talking about suicide. I just want to ask you, is that something that you're truly feeling or experiencing? Talk to me a little bit more about that. So even asking additional questions after that point and just truly being supportive at that point, right? That's where you can offer that help. Okay.
And some people are surprised to learn, and I know I was when I first heard that honesty is the best policy. And if you are thinking that someone is suicidal, that you really have to be that open with them to say, are you thinking of suicide? Is it okay to use those words?
Yes. We always train our specialists or even our CIT officers to always be direct, because we don't ever want to assume, right? Same thing with family members or friends. Are you having thoughts of suicide, and do you have a plan, right? Because we want to know where their thought process is at and if they've done anything or carried out any plans to attempt.
Okay. How should you prepare for those answers? I mean, what if they come back and say, yes, I've thought about it, and this is how I want to do it?
Right. So be mindful, right? We always say, be mindful of your expressions and your demeanor, your body language, and how you're coming off, because sometimes the answers are surprising or you're not expecting it. And so in times like that, right, having a little bit of self-awareness of yourself, holding back some of your own emotions at that point, because it can be sad, right? It can be frustrating, overwhelming, and really just approaching them with, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. You tell me what it is that you need, right? If it's something where you feel like you can't handle necessarily, or you're being triggered, then get somebody else to assist you or help you with that, right? If it's somebody else that they trust, a trusted family member, a friend, we always like to bring in additional support, and that's also a protective factor that we like to surround our clients with.
Okay, good information. So we talk about the conversation. You talked about some of the things that we should say, right? Are there some things that we should avoid saying?
Yes. So a lot of the times, right, and it's like this natural human response where we like to say things like, I understand what you're going through. But everybody else, every client, every individual has different experiences. So we don't necessarily know what it is that they're going through. We're trying to understand what it is that they're going through, right? But in those instances, those can be triggering words. If they're experiencing a crisis such as they're suicidal, things like telling them to relax, calm down, or just really invalidating their feelings is something that we've seen can really escalate the situation.
So how do you validate those feelings, those emotions, those thoughts?
Good question. So what we like to do, right, if we're just talking to anybody, I don't understand what you're going through, but I'm sorry that you're experiencing that. Let me help you, right? What you're going through, it's okay. You're not alone, right? So a lot of the times, our clients are individuals who are suicidal, might be scared or terrified of themselves. They might have a lot of that fear. And so really just being that support, but even the words can make a difference. So really just appealing to them in that empathetic manner where you're truly, hey, I'm here for you. Okay. What do you need from me? What can I do for you right now?
Okay. So let's go now to the next step. We've had that conversation. We have validated their feelings. What do you do now? Just, okay, bye, we'll see you later. Obviously, right. You don't want to do that. What do you do next? What do you plan for next?
So if our clients or individuals are saying, yes, I'm having thoughts of suicide, right? Okay. We want to know if they have a plan or that intent. So a plan is anything that they're planning to do to end their life. And that intent is they will do it, right? They have that intent to do so. Okay. So we want to make sure, right, to never leave an individual who is suicidal alone, right? That's our number one rule that we say here. Okay. But we really want to clarify what they mean. What is contributing to these thoughts? Did something happen recently? Did something trigger them? Was there a catastrophic event? Okay. Once you've established that, right, you have all your question answered, you truly want to get them some help. So whether it's, if somebody who is suicidal with a plan or a true danger to themselves, right, sometimes it does mean getting law enforcement involved or taking them to be further stabilized at a psychiatric hospital. But oftentimes some of our clients or individuals just need some types of services. Maybe they need some therapy to talk to somebody, case management services, medications, and things like that. So offering them some type of resource or a service. And if there's family members or friends that don't necessarily know where to look, the crisis clinic is always a good place to start.
Okay, so let's go ahead and go there. We're going to talk about some of the services that we have for immediate help.
Yes.
For anyone who is in crisis. So I want to start off with our crisis hotline, or what we call 988. It's a simple, those are the numbers you dial, or you could text 988. But I want to talk about 988 because that's, we think that's only for individuals wanting to talk about what they're going through. But it could be me saying I'm with a family member
Yes.
and they are experiencing this. What do we do? What should I do? This is what they're saying. We can guide them through that process, right?
Yes, absolutely. Our 988, of course, our crisis hotline individuals are the ones who answer those calls if it's here in El Paso, Texas. And so they do an awesome job of really determining what it is that they need in that moment.
Okay.
So if it's truly just to vent and hear somebody out and provide them resources, they'll give them the number for, say, centralized scheduling to schedule an appointment. If they truly need law enforcement, that's where then hotline will communicate and do that welfare check, call 911, and they'll initiate that process.
Okay, so that's one resource, but we also have, and that's 24/7.
Yes.
But Emergence Health Network also offers our walk-in crisis services located over on Yandell, correct?
Yes. So our crisis clinic is off of 1601 East Yandell. It is 24/7, and it's a walk-in basis, voluntary clients. A lot of the times we have family members, bringing in other family members, friends, things like that, but it's always open to individuals who need some help.
Okay, so we have these services. And again, these services are confidential.
Yes.
And again, most importantly, we need to let people know that they are 24/7. So no matter where you are, at what stage, we are here to help.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit more about, suicide prevention.
Okay.
Why is early intervention so important? At some of the stages you were talking about, starting those conversations, recognizing the signs. Why is that so important?
So essentially it saves lives, early intervention. A lot of our clients or individuals who maybe are experiencing these types of symptoms might not know what it is that they're experiencing. So education even, right? Educating them on certain warning signs, risk factors, symptoms that they're experiencing. And going further than that, there's resources out there.
Okay.
There's resources available to anyone who needs them. So early intervention, of course, right? That's something that we want to do to prevent them from then escalating.
Okay. And that escalation is what we call crisis?
Yes.
Can you talk a little about that? Crisis is when you get to a certain...
Yeah, so crisis, so think of it, right? You have coping skills that you utilize in your everyday life. A crisis situation can mean something different to anybody, right? What a crisis is to me may look different to you. But it's truly when your coping skills fail you and you're no longer able to utilize them. So you're no longer functioning at your normal. Okay. So that's the crisis state, right? We want to be able to get individuals back to their normal baseline to be able to function. So it can look different for different individuals of what they might need for that to happen.
Okay, that's good to know. So are there any misconceptions about suicide? And what are some of those?
So some things that we hear often is, of course, we know that there's stigma around mental health, mental illness, but even suicide. So asking an individual if they're suicidal will not make them suicidal. So I think that's one misconception that we often hear, where, we hear family members, friends, or just individuals who are concerned saying, I don't want to put that idea in their head.
Got it.
Right? But if an individual is truly having thoughts of suicide, we need to ask, right? But that doesn't mean we're giving them ideas or putting ideas in their head. They already have them. Okay,
got it. And that's a big misconception.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Like I said, I was surprised to hear that as well. Okay, how about you hear this, some of the stigma, get over it.
Yes.
Or that's a misconception, I'm assuming. It's not just something that you get over. You really need to work your way through it.
Yeah, so we call that one of our mental health myths, right? Of course, it's around stigma, and so we can't just get through it with our willpower sometimes, right? Oftentimes, some of these mental health crises or diagnoses are even chemicals to where individuals might need something different to be able to get them back to their normal. And so willpower can't do that for you, right? They'll get over it. And even considering different cultures within our community, that's something that we also have to take into account because that stigma is so strong. But with that, we counter it with education.
Okay, and that's, I'm assuming that you're referring to sometimes some cultures are, especially the Mexican, the Hispanic culture, is you're weak if you ask for help.
Right.
But what I have heard a lot of you counselors say, it actually takes a lot of strength to recognize that you need help.
Yes, oftentimes, of course, right, we praise our clients for even just speaking up, right, or saying something, reaching out for help, because it is seen as a strength, despite what they grew up with, or, you know, what it is that their experiences were growing up within their culture.
Okay, good. Okay. Earlier we talked about the risk factors.
Yes.
Do you have any of the protective factors? And what do we mean by protective factors? I've heard it described as like a bubble.
Yes, so that's actually a perfect way to describe it. So it's a bubble of certain things that are surrounding this individual or client and protecting them truly.
Okay.
So we say coping skills a lot, right? So what are coping skills?
Right.
Oftentimes clients are like, well, you know, I don't have any. But we then ask a simple question of, well, what do you do when you're angry or upset? What do you do when you're sad? Mm-hmm. Something as simple as listening to music, you know,
that's one. Okay.
Right, taking a walk, utilizing the gym, exercising. All those are coping skills. So we strongly encourage, right, coping skills as a protective factor. Okay. Another one could be supports, you know, surrounding yourself with a community or just having one support, at least somebody that you can talk to and truly trust and confide in. That's also an additional protective factor.
Okay.
There's many more, right? Good nutrition, exercising, everything that kind of feeds the mind, body, and soul. Okay. Those are all things that can help an individual protect them in their mental wellness.
Okay, and then I'm gonna say that this right here about getting the awareness out, the education is a protective factor, absolutely. Knowing that there are resources available.
Yes, absolutely. That's
okay, so for those of you who are watching and listening, please, you know, share as much of this information as we can, not just during Suicide Prevention Month, but all year long. So we're almost done here, but a couple more questions.
Okay.
You answered one of my questions, everyday actions that people can take to support mental wellness, because supporting mental wellness on a regular basis, does that help you cope, develop those coping skills, but also might help alleviate getting to that level where you're here?
Right, where you're escalating. Yes, absolutely. We say use those coping skills, right? Use your supports so that you're able to cope, decompress, so that you're not escalating to that point. We don't think about using our coping skills every day, no. Right? But we do utilize them. And it's something that we'll point out to clients or to individuals. And it's kind of like an afterthought, like, wait, you're right. You know, that is something I do. Something as simple as exercising, going for a walk, all those types of things will add to your mental wellness.
Okay. Bridgette, we want to thank you so very much. I have one last question for you that I'm going to get to in a second, but I want to go back to our resources. We did talk about our 988 crisis hotline. I also want to point out that that's, you know, simply dialing 988. Think of it as 911, but 911 is meant for like medical emergencies, right? Or emergencies, yes. Any kind of emergency. 988 is meant for mental health support, which is still an emergency, but knowing that that has to do with if you're in distress emotionally, correct?
Yes.
And the best part about 988 is you could dial and talk to someone, or you can even text.
Yes.
A lot of people like to use that function.
Yes, a lot of our children or adolescents, right, will utilize that function where they'll text the hotline and then get in touch with our hotline specialists.
Okay, so we're here for you on many different levels.
Yes.
So my last question to you, and anything else that you want to address that maybe we didn't touch, but if there is someone out there right now who may be watching, who may be listening and going through some challenges, what would you want them to walk away with?
You are not alone. There are definitely resources out there, and I know it can be scary at times, even just reaching out for help or telling somebody that you're going through something. But do it, take the step, right? Baby steps. Once you do that, reach out for additional help. There are services out there that we can assist with, but all you have to do is just take that step.
Okay, Bridgette, thank you. The information that you provided is extremely important. So thank you for what you do on a regular basis as part of our crisis intervention team. Bridgette does, you're out in the community with your team helping and saving lives, really. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Okay, and thank you. We'll see you next time.